Greetings and salutations. It is I, Mr. Nothing, the museum curator of the weird and the strange and the host who might be a ghost. Welcome back to Around the Weird 8 BookTube channel, where I talk about all manner of strange and unusual literature that I have found in my travels. Today, I don't want to talk about a book or a short story or a poem. I want to talk about a book tag that I've been tagged in, the Brandon Sanderson book tag, which I was tagged by the vile and villainous and possibly vicious Lucas from Bits of Lit. And I thought, yeah, sure, I guess I would do this book tag to satisfy his incessant demands. Interestingly, I don't know who Brandon Sanderson is. There's so many authors out there, and I'm not going to have time to get to them all. Based on what I do know, he's I think he's a sci-fi or fantasy author. So kudos to him for getting his work out into the world. I may never see it, but I hope that he is successful in his endeavors. And so without further ado, let's get to the tag. So the first question is, Brandon wrote many early novels while working as a night clerk at a Provo hotel. What book kept you reading late into the night? And so I think the answer to that is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. And I remember when it first came out, like I was 14, 15 years old. That year I told my mom, like, hey, for my birthday, because the book came out right as my birthday hit, I would like Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. And my mom was, golly gee, okay. Which was pretty unusual because, like, usually I asked for a video game, but this is like the one year where I asked for a book. And I remember like reading it through the night and like trying to find out what happens to Harry and his pals, and it was a really quality book and a really satisfying ending, at least in my opinion at the time. Satisfying ending for the series, and so that kept me up into the night. And I guess you could also say that like a lot of books are technically keeping me up late into the night because I read them during the night shift. So that's technically an answer, but I'm going to go with my first Harry Potter answer. The second question is, Brandon's complex magic system set his fantasy apart. What subject do you love to read about and all of its complexity? And I think the answer to that is ancient cultures and prehistory, mainly because it's always interesting to see like how archaeologists or anthropologists like study those cultures and try to figure out like how their systems worked and how their civilization thrived, which I think is interesting. But it also gets more curious, for me at least, when you get into prehistory, like the cultures that didn't have written records. Ancient Sumeria, for example, like they wrote some stuff down, but not all of it. So there's a lot of mystery there. Also, what happened to the Earth, like for the billions of years that it was around before like people started landing on it? You have a whole bunch of like asteroids hitting it, and there's a snowball Earth, and like just a whole bunch of extinctions happening. And it's very interesting to me because it's like how do scientists know that this happened? What methods do they use to detect it? And it's very interesting to me. Particularly, one thing that I love to learn about is that there was a glacial dam in Montana during the Ice Age. During a couple ice ages, and like every couple hundred years the dam would like break apart and a whole bunch of water would flood pretty much all of eastern Washington, and that formed the landscape. And you can really see it like when you drive through eastern Washington, the very like carved up landscape by centuries of water just gushing through. And it's pretty amazing to me, and like that's something I love to read about, and something that I find very cool. I don't think a lot of people know that. So the third question is, Brandon gets book ideas from watching other storytellers fail to execute a concept well. He figures out how to do it better. What two books handle the same concept in strikingly different ways? And which do you prefer? So I'm currently reading The Lost World. Stay tuned for that book review sometime in the next couple of days. And I already The Lost World by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and I already see a lot of similarities to Jules Verne's Journey to the Center of the Earth, which I also have a review on my channel, which you can find. I like Journey to the Center of Earth a little bit, but it was hung up by the fact that it read like a travelogue more than anything else, and the characters weren't clearly defined. But based on what I've read so far with The Lost World, the characters are more clearly defined, and there's a personality to it that I feel like Journey to the Center of the Earth didn't have. I see like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle like executing what maybe Jules Verne tried to do a little better, but it remains to be seen how that goes by the very end of the book. So I'll update you with that in a couple days. Question number 4. Child Brandon was recommended several books about dogs that die. As a result, he became a reluctant reader. Please share a formative good or bad childhood reading experience. And I've said this a couple times before. I really enjoyed reading Holes. I think I read that in 3rd or 4th grade, and the story was very intriguing to me, and it left an impact on me. Like, I frequently go back to the book, and it's so interesting. Stanley and Zero's experience at Camp Green Lake mixed with Sam and Catherine Barlow's experience in the past. And like at the time, I hadn't read a story like that before, and I was like, wow, what stories can be good, books can be good. And so that made me want to read more, because at the time I viewed reading more as a chore and a homework assignment than anything else. And I feel like that changed after reading Holes. So question number 5. Brandon and several friends host the Writing Excuses podcast, and they frequently invite guests. Please tell us about a collaborative fiction project and what you thought of it. So I think a good example of that is the Hickson Storytelling Project, digital storytelling project. In my undergrad at Iowa State University, I was a peer mentor for a scholarship program. And one of the things the scholarship program liked to do was encourage students to tell digital stories. So before the fall, we created a digital story. Basically, I wrote, and a couple of the other participants wrote a script that we based on the Hunger Games, which was popular at the time. And we ended up creating a video about that too, in order to tell a story about how to adjust to your first semester at a university, especially if you're a first-generation college student. That was a fun experience, and it was a lot of fun, and very interesting, like tossing ideas around to the other group members when we were writing the script down, and constantly trying to improve the story, and then going out and recording the different parts and trying to make it as solid as possible, so the students in the fall could appreciate it. I'll put a link to it in the description because it is still on YouTube, and it's kind of cheesy, but it's always fun to go back and look at old videos that you make, and see how you're getting better at writing, and getting better at like, I guess, acting as well. Link is in the description for that. I hope that's a good answer there. Question number 6. Brandon's first book, White Sand Prime, was rewritten and eventually converted into a graphic novel called White Sand. What book would you like to see in another format? I think the answer to this is pretty obvious to me, like easy for me, and that is Artemis Fowl. I would love to see it as a movie, and I know some people are going to say, well, Mr. Nothing, it was already made into a movie. It was made into a bad movie by people who wanted to upload it as quickly as possible to their streaming service to get more content, and people who did not have any faith at all into the movie or the book or the source material. And so I think that given more time and given a production team that actually cared about the story, you could have an awesome first like book adaptation of Artemis Fowl, where you have a snotty little teenage boy who kidnaps a fairy and then a siege begins. And it's such a wonderful idea, and it's a shame that Disney has gone and ruined it for us. I'm upset about that, and I'm never going to be not upset about how Disney ruins a lot of things. So I think that's my answer there. Question number 7. Brandon writes very quickly. What prolific author or authors would you recommend? I would say an author that I read when I was younger a lot was James Patterson. I absolutely love the Alex Cross series. And although I think that a lot of the time James Patterson writes so quickly because he has the help of co-authors who often write a bulk of the story, and that's a big problem in literature when you have just the name brand author who's not even writing much of their own story. That can be, problematic and terrible. But for the most part, like the Alex Cross series is James Patterson on his own, and it's a quality series because it's about a detective in Washington D.C. and the surrounding area where he investigates crimes, and it ranges from like a kidnapper of women to the president. To an FBI agent who is his nemesis, and the book series is pretty good as it goes along, and I definitely recommend it to those who would be interested in mystery of all things. So yeah. Question number 8. Brandon's Cosmere series are grounded in Platonic philosophy. What book or series gets you really excited about the source material? I'd have to say when I was in high school, I read All Quiet on the Western Front. That was interesting to me, and it got me interested in the source material, which was World War I, because not a lot of people at the time had talked about World War I, and I still feel that not a lot of people in fiction talk about World War I. They're all interested in the Second World War, which is the sexier war, I guess, to them. But All Quiet on the Western Front did inspire me to go out and learn more about how horrendous World War I was. And I guess you can't beautify World War I, which is why a lot of people just, avoid it. I guess I would encourage everyone again to go out and read All Quiet on the Western Front if you haven't already done so. And also just study up on World War I, incorporate it into the stories you write. It's important to get that war out there too, especially because it led to World War II. I guess that's a lesson in if you don't pay attention to the past, history will just repeat itself. So, the rise of nationalism led to a war, which led to further wars down the road. Question number 9. Brandon loves to show multiple sides of every issue and contrast character values. Please share a book that handles controversy well. I think a good example of this would be Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson. Speak is a book about a woman who is raped over the summer by a student at her high school. And she ends up calling 911, which gets the party busted, and she becomes the school pariah because of that. And the rest of the novel is her trying to figure out how to communicate that she suffered this horrific trauma. And I'll let you read the rest of the book to figure out how that goes. So I guess it's not told from multiple perspectives, but it is told from her perspective, and it is about rape, which is a controversial topic. And I think it does it absolutely well in a way that doesn't minimize rape, and it addresses PTSD as well, because that's what the main character is dealing with. So I'd say Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson. Laurie Halse Anderson also wrote a number of other books that I read during my high school years. One of them is Prom, and the other one is Catalyst, which both have similar themes to Speak. And they were pretty good too. They were also geared towards teenage girls, much like the Princess Diaries series. So I have no idea why I was reading those books as a youth, but I guess it's just the drama of it all was intriguing. And then the last question 10. Brandon Sanderson is a writing teacher, and unlike some writing teacher, he posts his lecture notes online for free. What free literature resource are you grateful for? I would have to say Wikipedia and SparkNotes. Wikipedia, because there's so many articles about so many different books on there, and all you got to do is type in like around the world in 80 days by Jules Verne, and it'll give you a summary and let you know the themes of it. And you shouldn't trust everything that you read on Wikipedia, but it's mostly backed up by people who have read the book or are experts on the topic. And so, like, if you're stuck and you can't figure out some aspect of a book you're reading, Wikipedia is great for that. And similarly, like I just said, SparkNotes, which is wonderful for high schoolers, but is also great if you're stuck on a book like outside of high school, I guess, and you're just curious, like, well, what did this particular passage mean? And you can go back and see what other people have said. Usually, it's pretty accurate. SparkNotes and Wikipedia both are excellent at providing knowledge to the masses, and that is my answer there. So that has been my answers for the Brandon Sanderson book tag. I hope I have shared something with the people out there. I hope some of the books that I mentioned draw your attention and that you may go out and seek them. If you are familiar with any of the books I said, or you want to simply comment on something I said, feel free to leave a comment below and we can have a discussion about that. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that we can talk about more beautiful books in the future and do more book tags if absolutely necessary. I'm looking at you, Lucas from Bits of Lit. Please, I guess if you need to tag me in more tags. But other than that, I wish you a pleasant time in your weird travels. Goodbye.